Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Well, welcome back. Time for our Impact Interview, and I'd waste way too much time going over even the highlights of this guy's bio. Let's put it this way. If you are at all familiar with college football, you know Chris Fowler is in Tier 1 when it comes to announcers and even historians of the game. Always a pleasure to have ABC and ESPN's lead play-by-play man join us. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always a lot of fun.
It is for me, too, and I always want to say hello to the people in that part of the world. That's a special place for me, so looking forward to it.
All right. Well, look, with the shifting TV contracts, this will be the last ABC ESPN whiteout for the immediate future. And worse yet, we don't get to see you in Herb Street in Happy Valley this weekend. And look, I know you love tennis, and I don't want to over dramatize the situation, but I envision you and Herbie somewhat like Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer at Roger's last match, sitting down kind of emotional. But certainly the network has been a big part of growing the whiteout, and I'm sure it's been a nice ratings boost as well. Wax poetic for us for a moment about the whiteout and give us a memory or game that stands out for you.
Man, I hope Kirk and I never get as emotional on the air as Roger and Rafa or Federer retire. That was just seeing legends like bawling. But I got it. No, I mean, for me, just being in Beaver Stadium in a regular game is special. Some folks there will know that I had never been exposed to college football, period, until the 1974 season. My dad took a job in the faculty. We moved to State College. Here comes Stanford into Beaver Stadium, and Cardinal had the lead. Penn State drove down late in the game, methodically, as was the way in those Joe Pa offenses, Jay, and they won the game, and it was thrilling. And I didn't even know that much about the team. I just took in the atmosphere and saw kind of the electric magic of college football at that level, and I was hooked. And it put me on this life path. Without that exposure, I don't know that I would have ended up doing college football, because I've been a fan of pro sports predominantly when we grew up in Illinois. So from that fall Saturday on, and every fall Saturday, the years we lived there, for $1, the faculty kids could get into the game, and they had very lax security in those days at the stadium. So you could pass a ticket stub through the chain link fence at the open end of the stadium, and you could get about 4 guys in on 1 ticket, which really reduced the cost. It was really a bargain then. And that was it for me, man. That was just, it wasn't the most electric team, but I was just drawn in by just the power of the event. And like I said, I owe my career in college football to those early days at Penn State. So I get nostalgic every time I go back. The whiteout is next level. It is my favorite annual scene in the sport. I've had the privilege of broadcasting quite a few. Some have been incredible games, matching the atmosphere. And yeah, I am bummed out not to be there for this season's edition. We had sort of counted on it. We got rerouted by a route in the Big House last week, and Minnesota's lost and some of the things that happened. And it wasn't in the cards for us, but it is sunk in as the week has gone on. And I'm not going to lie. I'm blessed. I'm grateful. But this Saturday, damn it, I wanted to be there at the whiteout. And, we deal with life's disappointments. We get rerouted sometimes in this world, and I'm old enough to know that you got to make peace with that.
Well, Chris, college football, as you know, is rooted in traditions that really make it unique from the pro game. How much do you think the moves of Oklahoma, Texas, USC, and UCLA either help or hurt college football in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shock to the system. So any traditionalist is going to have to live with the uncomfortable feeling of conferences getting realigned. But there really is no point in whining about it, because it's just beginning. It's going to continue. I think that every time there's a shift away and a loss of something, there's also a gain. And I think having USC and UCLA in the Big Ten will be exciting. I'll just be watching as a viewer, not getting to work those games. But it'll be cool, because it's new and it's fresh. And there's really no point in lamenting the fact that we're not going to see Oregon play USC or Cal play UCLA or whatever. Those traditions will go away. New things will be born. You want them to work out. I think it's a hell of a lot better than having Rutgers and Maryland join, if you want to know the truth, even though it's just an unnatural geographic thing, and maybe it'll lead to further expansion. Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC, again, interesting. It just adds to the depth of an amazing conference already. and whether or not those two teams will sink or thrive or be somewhere in the middle. I mean, remember, Missouri goes in there, predictions were they would get destroyed. They won the division. So, again, we will get a chance to broadcast the beefed up SEC, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting, to have Texas play Georgia and Oklahoma play Alabama, et cetera.
Hey, Chris, after Penn State's tough loss to Michigan and with Ohio State coming in next week, do you think this becomes in some ways a must-win for Penn State, not just for trying to win the conference, but also in terms of national perception?
Yeah, well, it's certainly must-win for trying to win the conference. If they keep the goals of winning the division and getting to Indy on the front burner, then obviously you got to have this one. I think it's just one of those games where we need to learn what Penn State's about. I mean, Ohio State's a hell of a tough assignment week after. I mean, Minnesota's difficult too, but that was a shock to me, the way they got run over with Michigan. I mean, I don't put a whole lot of credence in statistical rankings sometimes this early in the season, given the level of competition. But for a defense that was ranked in the top 5 to give up 400-plus yards and just get run over like that and physically overpowered, it's not just a loss, as you know, Scrap. Do people call you Scrap on this show? I don't know if that's acceptable.
They call me lots of things.
Okay, I know, but you lived it for a long time, and that is a destruction of a team's manhood, their self-image, to be run over like that. So responding to that against Minnesota, regrouping. I mean, you learn a lot about a team after a loss. We'll learn about Bama this week, but yeah, I think. I think how they respond is crucial for this season and maybe even beyond.
Yeah, Chris, we have a segment called Scrap Metal, so you're all good. We're fine.
Okay, all right. Just make sure.
And look, I get
sometimes you throw out these nicknames and you don't know if people are, what? Who? What are they calling him?
Well, look, I get to hit you with all the nostalgia questions, and you're going to be covering the SEC, so you get to pack a little warmer, more short sleeves than the long sleeves. But it's not just the whiteout, but it's the entire Big Ten at the moment without a partnership with ESPN. So, what things you're going to miss the most about not being involved with Big Ten games?
Oh, a lot of things, man. I mean, I'm not a terribly reflective person, but when I get to a setting, the memories come flooding back about games I've seen there. That was the case at Ohio State. It was not easy for Kirk to stand there in that press box, and it's like we'll never see an Ohio State game or a Penn State game. We're just going to have to be in the postseason or on the road or something. We're just not going to visit those stadiums. So, no more Horseshoe, no more Happy Valley, no more Big House probably. I'm not going to miss East Lansing quite as much. We did watch Ohio State go in there and thump the Spartans. That didn't feel nostalgic. But just everything about the campuses. And I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm going to miss a lot about it. I don't focus on what I don't get to do. My focus always turns on what I get to do, and that's just a way to be happier in life. So I won't mourn it for long, but I will get nostalgic when I tune in and watch those games and I hear, Gus and Joel and the other networks that are going to be involved call those games. And then we'll look forward to opportunities to see the Nittany Lions, Buckeyes, Wolverines on the road.
In both the pro game with Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen, to the college games where teams like UCLA, Tennessee, TCU, and others have jumped in the top 10 with mobile quarterbacks. As you look at it, has the mobility of that position become a great equalizer for teams, and how exciting is it calling games with this generation of quarterbacks?
Well, yeah, it can be exciting. I mean, ask Kirk how those Thursday games are working out where they never see any touchdowns. But I think the defenses are pretty good at that level too, right?
They're going to have to get Amazon Prime to ship them some touchdowns, I think, on Thursday nights.
I think you've heard Al Michaels say a few things about it. No, I think what's fun about the sport right now is that whether it's the passing schemes, the quarterback position for sure, because of the reasons you highlighted, the receiver position, and I think receiver play is the single most underrated aspect of football. I mean, I've said that for a while now. It's pretty much common knowledge, I guess. But the athletes that are attracted to that position just make it really exciting to watch. And what you've got is different ways to play the quarterback position at the highest level, right? Which is exciting. Guys don't have to fit in these narrow stereotypes, these molds. We're seeing the position played different ways. And that is exciting. I think that the NFL is the sport at its highest level. And the guys you mentioned certainly are compelling every single time they take the field, as well as the legends like Rodgers and Brady and the guys who are hanging on, and Justin Herbert, the whole cast of guys. And you can't not be excited about NFL football with those guys coming in. And in a college, obviously, it spins through, but it's encouraging to see great athletes continue to come through and emerge, class after class, and make the sport exciting, because without that elite playmaking ability, you don't have that same wow factor that I think fans look for, and certainly announcers look for.
As you look at the 12-team playoff, where do you see traditions like the Rose Bowl ending up in those years where it is not a national playoff game?
That's a really good question, and that is a big problem for traditionalists when they look forward. I think most people would nod their head and say they're in favor of expansion. It's inevitable. It's going to happen anyway. I don't know that it's going to produce different national champions. I don't know that it's going to produce different semifinals, because I think the teams that are at the top of the sport aren't going anywhere, especially as long as guys like Saban are coaching and Dabo Swinney. So I think you're going to see a lot of the same, and I think that's a big problem in the sport. It's just way too top heavy. We've had conferences that are way too top heavy too, and expanding the playoff, I don't think is going to fix that. But inclusion is good. Expansion for that reason alone is enough, and I think it'll produce some interesting quarterfinal games and more money. My concern is, though, frankly, guys, that you just keep adding games on the end of the season. I really do think that, I'm just saying this, I mean, this is not a popular TV business kind of thing to say, but, just player safety and overall concern for the players' needs and what's best for them doesn't include making it a 16, 17 game season. I mean, I see the wear and tear in game 15 calling these past 8 championship games, So you add a couple games onto that potentially for the teams that have to come through the bracket. That's a concern for me.
Look, leading up to it, and you just touched on it with player safety, Chris. You're one of the leading voices in the game. If they haven't talked to you about some issues, they should be. So if they do come to you and you say, look, we're missing the boat on this, or this is an area that isn't getting enough talking about, and I know NIL's out there, all that kind of stuff, or look into the crystal ball. What do you see coming down the road that maybe other people don't see, that you may be looking forward to, a hiccup, kind of in a general sense, I know, but pick your brain a little bit about the future of college football. I asked you enough questions about the past.
Well, the future is hard to know. We wouldn't have predicted the current reality probably 5 or 6 years ago, right? Not to the extent to which NIL and the portal has changed things. I think you might see some regulation of that to sort of curtail the Wild West aspects of what we're seeing right now. Player safety has never been taken seriously in the sport, okay? The lip service is paid to it. It's never taken seriously. You're not going to hear me bitch and moan about the targeting rule the same way a lot of people do, because I think you have to look at it in a bigger picture. And if you don't make the game safer, it will shrink. It will shrink. And the people who are at the very top of this sport, the guys who have, hundreds of millions and billions invested in it, are very concerned about the growth of the sport and what parents think about having their kids out in the football field. You guys live this. You have to take equipment seriously. You have to take rule enforcement seriously. You have to take workload seriously. Everything that contributes to injuries has to be looked at. Everything that can help safety has to be strongly considered. Even to the degree with which the game can be shortened. I mean, for lots of reasons. I'd like to see games sped up. If you're going to add games to the end of the season, maybe you can reduce the number of plays in a game just by speeding up the pace of it, the way the NFL does. These games that are 3:45, 4 hours long. I mean, do people really want that? That could factor into player safety as well. That's not something that's talked about a lot, but it just happens too often that you see somebody taken off in a cart. And yes, it's a part of the game, and it always has been, but we have to do better.
Chris, I'm going to shift gears on here before Todd asks you the last question. I know you're a music guy, and we asked Neuheisel this last year: Stones or Beatles? And he chose poorly,
Stones.
by the way.
Stones.
Thank you. That's good. You see,
You can't choose poorly.
Is that the right
between
answer?
the
Is there a
two.
right answer to that question?
there was a right answer. It is the Stones. And I know
didn't
you're a
even go-
U2 guy and Kings of Leon. You got a bunch of
You're
groups.
going way back. I mean, I actually, there's a lot of new music I'm into as well, although I have a vinyl record player and I love spinning, old school rock and roll in vinyl through speakers that actually move some air as opposed to, like compressed files in your phone with earbuds. I believe real music should be listened to in a room. But I'm Jay, I mean, if I could go on and on about my workout playlist of, Rage Against the Machine and Metallica and Ministry and Five Finger Death Punch and a bunch of bands like that a lot of you people are really shaking their heads at. But I don't know how old I'll be, and I just hit 60. How old I'll be when I get tired of listening to loud, angry music, but I haven't got there yet.
Well, I will tell you, I saw Rage Against the Machine open for U2 in Memphis back in, I can't even remember what year it was. It was an
Hey,
epic
man,
night.
I saw Rage at the Garden like a few months ago, and I was down in the pit. My friends go, should we get some nice tickets and some seats? No. Roll back the clock to the 90s. We're going in the mosh pit at Madison Square Garden. I don't know if we're the oldest people in there or not. Probably not, because there were people having their own nostalgia trip in there that night. But it was fun. Knock around a little bit. Listen, I got to show up on TV, so I know the dudes to avoid. You can always spot that guy. Keep your distance. But it was good fun, man. I never too old to rock and roll.
Agreed. And there was no wrong answer to that, for sure. Hey, look, lastly, how do you stay connected with Penn State? I know you'll be hitting your buddy Jay up for some stuff, but, I know you mentioned how much it means to you. I know you're going to stay connected somehow. I'm sure you'll be keeping a close watch on the blue and white.
Oh, yeah. No, I always do. I mean, I think that, you're very down the middle when you do this game, when you're on the call. But obviously, there's certain teams you have a feel for, and you'll follow. And I'll continue to follow them. Maybe it'll be going to a spring practice. But honestly, I mean, when it's all said and done, when I'm not calling games and I'm obligated to be at some stadium, I will come back around and flat out go to a game and hit up somebody for tickets and maybe a field pass too, because once you have that kind of access, you don't want to give that up. And maybe Jay, some future offensive coordinator, will let me call a play in the spring game.
Oh, yeah, because that never happened.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah. and his answer was...
right to the tight end, and he was wide open. Right?
Yes, he said, throw it to tight end because Penn State never covers the tight end. and we did, and he did get a completion out of that one. That was fun.
That was a moment for me, man. I enjoyed that.